I don't know. I think that may be a computer issue.
Logo.
That's someone from Marshall Electronics. But we should, are we unmuted? There's no. Yep. Yep. Everyone's logged in. Someone.
Recording in progress.
So the schoolhouse is, that is the historic schoolhouse on the Zoom call. I'm on the Zoom call, and then, so I'm guessing that's the white.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Or we just do the meeting at the top. I think we just do the meeting.
Good.
As long as it's recording.
Yeah.
We have video, no video is fine, but we definitely need the recording.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, looking at the Zoom right now, on my computer view of Zoom, someone in the schoolhouse is talking, so I assume it's recording. As it's recording. All right. Okay, so let's call the meeting to order. It's 9:03. Okay, any oral communications for items not on the agenda? Just fine trail conditions.
Yeah, so they don't need to be referred to.
Okay, we can do those when we go through the trail conditions.
I have something.
Okay.
I have had some questions from a neighbor in the Highlands who has a informal connector on their property, and she's an old timer here, and she said it's an easement. Said it's an easement to me. So and she said, I said, well, could that be a trail? And she said, no, she doesn't know. So my question is, could we get a primer maybe at the next meeting from Howard, or I don't know, from the right person? How does that work? For example, if she was willing to, do I go research if the easement said pedestrian trail, or then does the town come in and do something? May something sign an agreement or what?
Yeah, so what's the process for creating a new trail?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think we should probably, we have to go with the town staff. How you can tell us right now.
We can research, but I have some background. I have some background on it. So typically, if there is an easement, we don't know if it's active or not, or if the town council approved it. So if the easement exists, then we would go through the process of making it active, getting it approved by the town council, aligning it with the use, and budgeting funds to build any improvements to trail standards. So that's kind of in a nutshell, quick 500-foot look at it. Does that satisfy you?
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
How long is the trail length? The length of it? Can you guess?
I would guess it's a football field.
Oh.
Maybe a football field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Worldwide.
It leads from Santa Maria to a back road towards Wayside. And it's quite, it would be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, expanding this fulfills good thing. Okay. Any other oral communications providing? Okay. Let's move on to approval of the minutes from last time. They're a new format we're using. So check on that. We can happy to take outside the meeting. Have a motion to approve.
I motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay. Alex Lipton, aye.
Thank you.
So I think we've got
Enough
Do I
approval.
still vote?
yeah,
That was
still
a
vote.
question I had.
Yeah.
You still vote if you do the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3, 4, 5.
4 of us, Alex and
Okay, I think I
Mayor.
actually have to record.
Yep. And Alex and Gary, if you want to vote on the approval of the minutes.
I'll abstain. I wasn't here for the discussion, so I don't know.
Okay.
But
All right. Gary's
I didn't have any changes.
Gary's abstaining too.
Thank
9,
you.
7, 8.
Gary arrived.
Oh, okay. Oh, right, because particularly because there's no video, so I will just do that. Acknowledge there. So we have Howard Dunn, Alex Doherty, Jackson Davis, Joe Coleman, Ellie Ferrari, Liz Babb, and Gary Cannon, and I am Freddy. And Judith Pasco, our counsel. And Teresa. Okay, Teresa Coleman, who's the liaison from the Conservation Committee, is also.
Marshall Electronics is miniature TVs, cameras.
Miniature TV cameras, so maybe it's those. That would be the issue, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're off like a herd of turtles. Let's move to old business. Trail conditions, working budget for February.
Included in February, but I also included the previous trails. And mainly the February trails. 12 hours January, and that's clearing fallen trees, and then 7 hours for February, and once again, that's mainly clearing fallen trees, and because of the heavy windstorm from yesterday, we probably have a handful of more clearing fallen trees. So the majority is going to be clearing fallen trees. When are we going to get to our kind of our routine maintenance of mowing? Probably May and April of this year. That's when you're going to see the bulk of the money spent on but is there any questions at all in the February sales maintenance?
I'll bring up one. I guess no questions on.
I'm gonna go through February, and then I'm going to go through the previous ones. Is that okay?
I think we did through January last meeting.
Yeah.
December, January. So I don't know that we need to spend time.
Fine, okay, I did the verbal. We just didn't include the map. So this time we included no questions, then we'll just skip that.
Well, I'll bring up a real quick question I have. Every time I read those trail condition reports, I think about how much time it's taken to put those together. I can see it a little bit serving us, but we don't get much value out of it. Is it for other reasons that you do all that recording of data?
No, that's a good question. It's been around, since I've been around 20 years. So we could talk about that. But I think it was just to provide the committee what we do, how many hours that we spend. At the time, they wanted to see what was done and where.
And I find that we don't do anything with that information, so I'm not sure what the value of it is.
So let's, maybe at the next Trails Committee meeting, we could talk about maybe the value of that. Everyone, if we could think about it for the next, what value does it have? Because it does take staff time to do it. Now, is that a lot of staff time? No, because you can see we are very basic. It's a map with hand-drawn X's. I mean, if it got any more advanced than that, then yes, it requires administration. But that's a good thing to think about. I mean, you know, the person that really does the work marks up this, and it would save time. So I think that if it would help us staff to save time, if you would consider to talk about it at the next meeting.
And the one thing that I'll add is when I was interviewing Gary on potential fields in the potential Trails archive, we were talking about whether the value of trail maintenance whether that should be a field. What would be the value of that, reporting that every time? And Gary said, well, one thing will be the value, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in the database, is if a certain trail consistently had XYZ having to be fixed, maybe that's something that permanently we need to budget for. How would we know that if we weren't reporting monthly maintenance? So, you know, maybe it'd be something that your team would keep track of instead of this way, but just in some other way. Throwing that out there.
It says that in the last meeting, I guess, it says that his maintenance budget has not been severely impacted by extra trail work due to rain. The trails around town are an amazing mess. Are you talking about just current or the future? Because right now, you're going to need a lot of money to fix a lot of these trails.
So at that time, we haven't done an assessment yet because we were basically doing an assessment of the roads at the storm prior. So we've had more rain. Typically, this time of year, we turn on the irrigation, and it's basically the forecast is showing rain till the end of March. I mean, this is almost unprecedented rain and wind for this area. So I think we're still in the assessing mode right now. And if you do want to help, I mean, where we do need some help is if the Trails Committee members go out and help us assess it too. Because right now we're focusing on fallen trees on roadways and power lines. We're going to focus on those things. But if everyone just walked the trail and got back to us, I think that would help us.
There's three that I would raise right now. The Salto Trail, and then we have a communication from talking about the intersection of basically it's the Alpine Trail at the intersection of Pickle Road. Very muddy and slippery because it's off camber right there. I would say some guy makes more than one. So we should probably figure out what we can do to more permanently fix that area.
Okay. Actually, Sauso we are aware about, and we have a contractor that gave us a quote on it already. We just couldn't get on it because it was the Hillbrook Trail at the bottom. Yeah, yeah, and we'll take a look at that too. And same. I think Sauso and Hillbrook we have quotes for. Alpine and Portola. We got a couple calls there. I think Gary indicated one made us aware. There was a catch basin close to the MRSOE property that flooded that trail. And after that heavy rains, we opened it up, but it's a little bit muddy still. And going down towards Roberts and past Roberts, there are some drainage issues coming off MROSD property that we're talking to them about. Yeah. In addition, one of their main ditches that came off their property was redirected to the street instead of a culvert that we had over there, and it basically flooded the trail. So then
there are definitely issues along Alpine Trail there, but this intersection it's exacerbated because of the foot traffic that it gets. Mm-hmm. But basically right at the crosswalk, right where the trail sort of come down to the road, mm-hmm. I mean, very muddy and slippery.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll take putting up some rock. Probably putting rock there. We'll look at putting rock there when it's dry enough.
There's water bars there, right?
Yeah, there are water bars if you're going towards, up towards with water bars when you come down, but if you're coming from Puerto Madera School, there's a lot.
The section right by the intersection of Alpine and Portola there, you kind of go up a little bit and right in the,
but it's the place right down by the road that people are going
very muddy. The part that we fixed was further down.
About 200 feet up is where we fixed it. But that section of trail experiencing because of the amount of rain, there's a lot of water perking out of the hillside.
Okay. It's just that there's so many kids coming down. The other ones that were noted in are basically Portola Trail between Grove. It says the Puerto Madera Bridge, which I think is I don't know if that's an official term, but I think that's the bridge between Grove and Portola. Mm-hmm. So that has flooded.
So we have a quote on. We already got a quote on that to get that repaired too. And once again, it's waiting till we can get equipment dry enough to get equipment on there without making more.
So Howard, if we do a follow-up such that committee members walk their trails and give you an assessment, what are we looking for? I mean, Larry Lane and all Herb Dengler and all those are just totally mudded out. But I mean, I assumed that would be that way. So what is normal and what should we alert you to?
At this point, if you could alert me to fallen, imminent danger or imminent danger to a person or a trail, meaning fallen tree, or if a culvert is blocked, that if it ceases to function, it'll just cause more damage. The rest of it we'll take care of later. But really imminent danger items, fallen trees and blocked culvert and ditches.
But in terms of assessments, like damage to the actual trail, also, actually got like Philbrook, or you've seen Crosswell.
Yes.
Is that kind of damage also?
Yeah.
So, like basically, the trail should have a continuous bed, and if the water has carved out a big piece of it.
And it's more dead. There's going to be minor carves here and there. What I'm looking for is imminent dangerous items. And you don't have to, if you can submit it through PB Connect or you can email me, you don't have to wait till the next Trails Committee meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it would be preferred if we fix the problem that causes the erosion rather than just patching the erosion. And I know that's a little bit harder, but it will ultimately save us money long term. That's kind of the approach you've taken on those. To clear the ditches, to clear the culverts. A lot of times you won't get the rutting. But that's not necessarily true at salsa. I think salsa is I don't know how to fix it, but if we can fix it right.
The Saucil and Hillbrook Trail involve private property homeowners because it's in a valley. Everyone in the backyard may have redirected from what I've seen, redirected drainage onto the trail instead. Probably inadvertently, but we'll have to look at home.
There's part of the capacity for that. We have our capital improvement next meeting.
Well, in reading the minutes, I saw my responsibility, so I said, okay, I'm gonna do it right now. So I sat down at the computer and I did something else. And then I saw it again and I did something else again. So I have to still, so I talked to Howard already. April 10th is my absolute deadline. So I want to finish by the end of March. I need today, I already have my note here, to go home and put out the request to everyone to within a week of today. I'm gonna ask you to get back to me with any capital improvement projects that you have thought about or would like us to consider, and or adjust comment on previously submitted ones. And if you get that to me via email, I will be able to put together. And then since Al Harvard needs it by April 10th, we can't wait until the next meeting to discuss it. So I'm going to use my experience and submit it to Howard. More is better than less. So whatever you consider, we will take a look at it.
Yeah, and I guess I bring it up so that we can make sure folks can walk the trail. Rather than just patching some of these things, having more substantial fixes, getting it on this list. Right. Great way to help us prioritize.
Send it to Joe.
Yes.
Yeah, Joe's going to send us all an email.
And dare I ask Joe to re-email the list of responsibilities for each trail to everybody?
Oh,
today, maybe?
Sure. Yeah, sure. That'll be part of it. Yes.
Okay. Anything else, Tom?
No, that's it. On the public works side, I mean, we typically open up all of our play fields already, and we haven't been able to open them for the leagues. Other than that, the main focus is on keeping our roads clear. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Let's move on to database subcommittee update.
Okay. The new name for this project is Trails Archive. Database was creating a little bit of angst among people. I have finished my preliminary interviews. Thank you again to everybody who's given me time on that. And I had a really great series of interviews with Alexis and from Green Technologies. I'm sorry, I don't quite have it memorized. She had attended one of our meetings last year at Howard's suggestion, and her company does a lot of maps, which are actually underlying databases for various jurisdictions in San Mateo County and also in Santa Cruz County, et cetera. And they're currently working on an active project with the Woodside Fire Protection District. They're very familiar with our area, and basically, you know, our project would be equivalent of like a little gnat in their world, and they were totally willing to do kind of a mock-up and to literally, you know, do complimentary. So I'm going to pursue maybe a little mock-up along with a one-pager for the committee to review as to what this thing would actually have in it, address concerns that were expressed at the last meeting, and I'll do that at the next meeting. If you could put that on the agenda for the next meeting, that'd be great.
Is that to do with notifying people when trails are open or closed?
No, it would include history. It would include decisions made by the committee relative to the trails. It would include all the signage along the trails. So if we had an issue with a sign, we could just pull it up, know where it is, etc. So if this one pager I'll create, we'll have all of the fields that might be in there. We can always add stuff, but no, it wouldn't be, although their company does things like that, that's not our current, that wouldn't be a vehicle for that.
When somebody new in town wants to know about trails,
it would start out, well, no. The one pager I'm doing is going to describe what the archive would be. Okay, because everybody has to kind of vote on that before I run off on my own and create this thing. And it would start out as an internal committee use only database / archive.
Might be worth interviewing Ellie for the.
I have.
Oh, you.
Ellie, you talked about it. And you were going to be somebody that would help me with content. But I was explaining that I had explained that right now I'm developing the receptacle. We're definitely going to want to do the trails.
Easements, are they going to be in or decided?
Yeah, we haven't decided, but my current thinking on it would be if we had just like we have now in our little flat file database that we keep, or I keep, if a parcel map with an easement on it came up, I have it in our Google Drive and I link to it. So it would link to it could link to the San Mateo County, just for ones that we've already had the data so that we wouldn't have to recreate our work the next time it came up. but I'm not talking about a massive project of going back and figuring out, do we actually have the easement for such and such?
Yeah, we stumble across and see them. You're okay with that, Howard? Is that a?
I haven't, well, yeah, I'm sorry. I haven't, like, this would all be laid out in this one page. It's not that I've gone forward with anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify. I didn't invite her. I didn't know how. I'm assuming someone else invited her. But besides the point.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the software. Yeah, I did not. I just want to clarify. I did not. I mean, I don't know if
I'm sorry. You know who it was? It was Craig Hughes.
Okay. Free is great. Any help is good, as long as it integrates with our system. And I just want to point out that the software that we use is ArcGIS ESRI.
Yeah, that's what they use.
Okay, so then as long as it can integrate into our system, and we'll work on that.
That's a new idea. I hadn't planned that. So love that.
So we'll see. With with anything that's free comes maybe something later on.
Totally agree. And it doesn't have to be them. It's just it's a great offer.
Yeah, I'm off to get an idea of what's possible.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for that update, Liz. Let's move on. Follow-ups from the February meeting. So this is a new technique or approach that we're taking to hold ourselves accountable for things that we say we're going to do at the meeting. Blasphemy. Well, speaking, Mr. Hanning, darn, you're the first one here. Did you get a chance to discuss with Denise Gilbert on their process for trail closures?
Yes, I did. I sent her an email. She never replied back, but I don't know that I needed it. I spelled out our concern, but I also thanked her that overall it was a good program and did well and results were good. And so I just mentioned that trail closures are a little sensitive, and
did something happen? Did the run close and trail?
They closed the trail for the workday the day before, or the sort of evening before. Which not the end of the world, but
not the end of the world.
Not the end of the world. Let's see, Howard, you and I had a bit of back and forth on trail closure.
Mm-hmm.
Any update on that?
Yes. Okay. So just want to let the community know that we do post the trail closures. However, we acknowledge it was in the open space section, and how somehow when they migrated from the old website to the new website, it just happened. We don't know why, how it was established that way, but Carrie said she'll correct it. Okay. We will. Now, where it's going to go, we'll have to determine, because most people that visit the website aren't going to go to the Trails Committee page to find out trail closures. So we might have to find out a new spot, like a special tab for trail closures. That being said, let me see. There's different types of trail closures. There's the planned trail closures that we typically post. It's the unplanned trail closures that are a little more difficult. Someone else has posted it, tree falling down. Someone reports a tree falling down, because we have to go investigate it, whose tree it is, what we're going to do about it, come up with custom sign. You have to do it. There's a bunch of back and forth, and then going down to Carrie. So there is some time lag. What I'm trying to say is I'm trying to meet expectations by, on the ones that are unplanned, it takes time. Yeah. But I think that is it. If there's any questions on it? Is that
could we tap into the Trails and Paths mail list? People can sign up online for Trails and Paths topics, and then just push it out that way. And for the emergency closures, those are emails, not texts. If I'm right. Just tell people to sign up if they're really interested. To sign up, because it works. Yeah, and it's there.
That's a good idea. How? Let me see. Let me touch bases with Carrie on that and how we would advertise that.
Can I make a suggestion? So I have a follow-up on this item to put on the agenda. That's whether there's a committee member who would like to take this up as sort of working with Howard and town staff to make sure we're connecting trail updates on the website and getting them pushed out to the public.
I vote for Susan Bowles. Love that approach.
Alex? Okay, Alex is good.
Alex will. Okay, but that was not the to do the follow up regarding just the new trails page, right?
I think in general we should group those together. So there's the new trails page, the communication.
Yeah,
I'd be
because
happy to help with, I mean, just certain aspects, like when it comes to us updating the trails map and the Safe Routes to School map, it's definitely become clear that all that's kind of hidden, and then there's like weird disconnects. So once we get to the place,
okay, so new trail page, you guys will help. Maybe you could create a mock-up of what it could look like. Is that how that works, Howard? How do you guys even come up with what committee pages on our portollavalley.net website should look like?
That's I'll have to talk with Carrie. I mean, with any website, there's some kind of standard items, and I think that if my initial reaction is if someone on the Trails Committee can help and work with us to develop a kind of
Yeah.
site.
I mean, that's just a part of it.
Yeah. When I talked to Carrie about this, because this kind of came up at the very beginning of when we started the trail map update, we knew we were going to have to update that page. And she said, just give me your ideas and I'll mock something up and I'll send it back to you. So it sounds like she does that initial mock up and then we would, but that was a year and a half ago. I think we had that conversation. Something might have changed. She's easy to work with.
Marshall Electronics is. Oh no!
I'm talking with the company as we're doing.
Well, we got a picture of the schoolhouse now. That's good. Okay. Let's see. Oh, we didn't. I guess we didn't cover this in your update, Howard. But you have an update on the budget relative to how we're doing in terms of budget spend relative to your overall.
No, I'll get for the next meeting. We'll get the expenditure report printed from the finance department. But I can tell you the bulk of our expenses will occur close to summer. Yeah. The mowing and the trails work typically occurs when it's dry.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I have to determine how I know that the fire department has some new rules about getting mowing done earlier and how it affects us. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about.
And whatever happened, Alex, with you meeting and Gary to go over what we thought were capital things for CERTs, Safe Routes to Schools? Did those all turn out to be maintenance, or are those things that are going to end up on Joe's list and you'll submit them by April 10th? What?
Yeah, we can. I can
Oh, okay.
So we still haven't had that.
Well, I'm pretty sure everything I know of is on Joe's list already. There's a couple things that just popped up recently because of all the rain, so I guess we could do this.
Well, I mean, the specific physical improvements to trails list that we came up with for Safe Routes. It was quite
Alpine.
a presentation on it.
No, that's not, oh, the Alpine Trail is primarily. I think you're referring to Gary. The Alpine Trail.
We had the Alpine Trail issues and the Dakota Trail issues.
Right.
Maybe some other ones.
This is good.
One popping up on the corner of Indian Crossing and Alpine.
Okay, yeah, I would just ask, that Alex, you make sure that Joe's list includes our presentation. To the extent that they actually are capital stuff. I guess to Joe's point, the better, the more the merrier, but.
We'll get on capital as
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, one was widening what I believe now is called Puerto Madera Bridge. So stuff like that. Yeah.
Wide for the bridge, but
Lead up to.
yeah,
lead up
yeah,
to.
the lead up to it. Right.
How are the kids getting to school now when so many of those trails and Safe Routes to School Carroll.
My kids are becoming very good little like mountain bikers on Salsa Trail. You have to navigate like sleds, puddles, ditches.
Well, good to get you.
We're
You
still
mean
we're still doing it.
learning grit.
They're not saying, Mom, take me by the car.
Yeah, no, they're kind of having fun with
Okay.
it. We're covered in mud when we get to school, but yeah.
Yeah,
You mean
It's
we
working.
don't need to do much work fixing trails because they can all.
Yeah. they don't mind. They like the mud.
Tough meat on that.
Let's see. I think we've actually covered the follow-up from Joe on. All right. I will. The next one is on me, which didn't actually make it on, but we had an item to discuss the strategy for getting clarity on the movement with Philbrook, with bikes. So I actually think we can have a discussion now. How do we want to tackle that? Do we want to form a subcommittee? Do we want to have an individual committee member take that on to come back to the meeting next time for the following one with proposals for a strategy?
I'm not sure what the request is.
I want to put that, in context. The idea is that we've all agreed, just to get everybody's heart rate down, that Hillbrook is not for bikes right now, will not show as allowing bikes on the new map. But the idea was, let's get a strategy going to change that easement. There are many different ways we could do it. So who wants to take that on? If we come up with a strategy approach.
Yeah, and I think and part of that strategy would be, evaluation of could we actually go through with trying to incorporate that into essentially into the safety with the motivation, right? Or,
Yes, but I guess the question, right, is that the extent of it? I mean, because that gets one. This is, I guess, part of the strategy, but that's like very specific, right? Like, are we asking to change all these people's easements on their properties to say just for this hour to this hour, or is it more of an opening up? And that maybe ends up being a question for limiters, I guess. And I mean, I think the point of doing this also is more, I would argue, this topic's not going to stop, that you're going to have a new committee member 10 years from now who's going to say, why can't this trail allow bikes? And just to like understand, well, first you give the answer of why, but then to understand, I guess, the process of if sometime over the next 50 years we want to change a given trail's status, what does that look like?
I thought I read in the minutes that Howard said you can't change the trail to allow bikes between this hour and that hour. It has to be.
Yeah. So, right, but, well, and this is, I guess, but we can't now, right, based off the easement.
So the homeowners can grant the easement any way they want. So the homeowners could say we only allow bikes between 8 and 10 or whatever the numbers are. Then the town would have to find a way to live within that, right? So unlike road right-of-way easements where the town would be the one making that decision and the town has said, no, we don't want time limits on the road right-of-way easements. But for private property easements, I don't see any reason why if the homeowners decide that they couldn't do that. And then there should be a two-pronged strategy here, that contacting the residents, and I found contacting the residents on Salsa, they've been very supportive of this. So maybe it's not as bad as we think it is. The second prong should be walking the trail with Howard and looking at safety issues, because I know I've heard from both Judith, and I don't want to speak for Judith, and Mary Huffey, two council members that have said, hey, there's some pretty serious safety issues on that trail for bikes. I don't want to speak for them, so I don't know what exactly they're thinking, but a second approach would be to start working on that right away, because it could probably translate to dollars. I don't know.
Well, maybe the safety easements are the water bars. That go down
It might be salient to the homeowners to know what is going on with the safety before we ask them to change the easement. So.
Well, I'll just mention one person, I believe, we have an easement all along Hillbrook.
There's portions of Hillbrook that probably are unattainable, but there's portions that might be obtainable, right? So,
and I think that the thing that's motivating this, right, is there are a lot of kids elevation above Hillbrook for whom Hillbrook Trail would be a very good connector on safety to be able to get to Foot-A-Matera. And lots of those kids right now, I think, are Ormondale age. I think of at least probably that are, you know, going to be interested in using that trail to get to Puerto Madera on their bikes over the next 7, 8, 10 years. And so having a strategy, so the idea would be we have a committee member who puts together a strategy for, you know, what can we do to solve this problem? It's not about necessarily changing, it's not focused on a solution right now, but it is acknowledging that there's a problem and putting together a strategy, a range of strategies to address that problem. So the request, I think last time, was to figure out who would like to take this on.
Yeah, I'm happy to be the. I mean, I think if I'm understanding correctly, we're at this point we're talking like pretty loose strategy. We're talking is what we feel. And I guess my only question would be: is it okay if I collaborate a little bit with asking? I just know we've talked a lot about it, Gary.
Of course,
I'm happy to kind of people want to lay it out, but if I could just bounce it off of you.
Absolutely. Anytime, you know, there's like an easement issue on any trail, I'm happy to help it to the extent I can. So yeah, no problem.
How many homeowners are you talking?
Oh, I don't know. 5 or 6.
That could be part of it.
Depends how far you go up the trail.
Like, yeah, I was gonna say more like 8 or so.
Yeah, if you're gonna go all the way up.
On it, and they've got the, you know, they have a list for everyone on Colebrook, all the homeowners. So as far as that piece is.
And we don't have to do the whole trail, right?
Strategy, you know, a strategy document, and that would be included.
So do we want to try to aim for a discussion of that strategy next meeting or the meeting after?
I mean, I think it's totally reasonable that by the next meeting, there's just a real loose, like, that's 1, 2, 6.
Cool. That sounds good. All right.
Somebody with wonderful social skills to actually go and talk to the homeowner.
Are you volunteering? Okay, so the next item, Howard and Gary to give a definitive guidance on Sausage Trail issues for the safety picture map.
And public map.
And the public map. We have
words. You want to go first, Howard?
Yeah, we're working on it. We don't have a solution yet. There was some easement document that Gary found from the neighbor. Thank you very much. But it's so old that it was handwritten in cursive. And very, very, I mean, it was almost impossible to read.
And the margins were chopped off. One page, half the page was chopped off. And I went back to the homeowner and asked, is this really what they gave you in your title report? And, yeah, this is what they gave us. So given that it's in bad shape, we may need to try to find a cleaner copy. You know, the book number, the page number now. But I looked online and, you know, there's a portal to look up whether a map exists. It won't show you the map of the San Mateo County. You can look up a book number and a page number and it'll tell you, but it didn't know about that. It was 1905.
Yeah. So we'll have to, you know, I was going to send it to our land surveyor, but it's almost like it's a moot point because it's basically 30% of the page is cut off.
You can't get a clean copy. Yeah. However, I'm ready though to ask for a ruling. You know, knowing we have an easement, it exists. We can't read it. It exists. And on a map, we have a summary that says it's a road. You know, I'm ready to maybe ask for a ruling from Cara or somebody because I, in my own mind, can't see a road easement prohibiting bikes. You know, anything that travels on a road, you know, you're allowed. And then the other half of the trail, we do have bike easements, rock solid. So you know, I guess weigh that, asking a ruling from Cara versus us trying to find a cleaner copy of that easement and then trying to read it at this point is kind of the question to you, Howard. Which way can we go?
I don't know that you guys need to decide here. We can actually carry this over to the next one.
Well, we would like to get it in the resolution.
Right, but I don't think
the release of the map. And
we don't have I mean, we're not going to make the decision right here,
No.
right now, because we have to go get the guidance from Kara.
Oh, yeah.
So
Good point.
my point is
I just like to make the decision, can we go for a call from Kara at this point, or do we really have to go get a human copy? That's the decision.
Gary,
So this is how I have it played out in my mind, is that if I send it to Kara, she's gonna probably say, look, have the land surveyor look at it. So I'm probably gonna have our land surveyor look at all the documents first and provide an opinion, and that'll help Kara form an opinion also, and then we'll go from there. But I think it is going to be key to have that document, and then unfortunately, it's almost not legible. So we'll go from there. I think what I will do is after this meeting, I'm going to send the documents to our land surveyor to get an opinion of in these instances, what have you seen before? And then I will get together with Kara and ask her.
so Gary, did you say that you know what the book number is down at the county recorder's office? Has anybody been there? Because those, you have access to all those books, and you can maybe look at the.
Right. I haven't gone down to the county center yet, but I have used their portal.
Yeah, because when you open up those big books, there's so much information in there.
So the next step probably would be, we'd have to. If we can't get a favorable ruling, then I'm willing to go down to the county.
Yeah.
And I almost, if someone can, I mean, I know ultimately someone's gonna have to pull out the book. And I know what you're saying, Joe. Sometimes maybe when they scanned it,
yeah,
someone just scanned 30% of the page instead of the whole page. Eventually, we'll have to do it.
So we'll try this. Go to the land surveyor, get feedback, see if we can get a ruling from Kara, move forward. So we'll have another update at the next meeting. And if we can move forward for the next meeting, that would be great to let the map subcommittee know, Liz on the map subcommittee, so that we can actually move forward. This is the last item meeting.
Well, we have a meeting after this.
Oh, there's one other item, yeah. Okay. Liz, did you deliver the gift to Dave Evans?
Oh, yes. I delivered our lovely gift to Dave Evans, thanking him so much for the hours and hours and hours he spent on both the search map as well as the public map. And he's super appreciative and he continues to work on it. So I guess that was a good move.
Yeah.
Not gotten reimbursed yet.
I didn't say an email from you.
Okay, I can follow up.
Cindy would be.
Okay. So we need to put on the agenda how to handle signage changes and updates. That's maybe having Howard back here for this.
Yeah, let me just
Let's
give a little background.
Hang on for a second until Howard comes back. He's working on the technology.
Oh.
Okay, so little background on the signage thing. So as part of the maps we do, the subcommittee walked the trails and we noted that there were issues where signs were damaged, incorrect, or necessary, in our opinion. And we created a Google spreadsheet that was then in November distributed to everyone on the committee and asked people to either email me or if they were familiar with how to put in coordinates to go into the Google spreadsheet and put in your own signage issues. So that's where it stands. We have this spreadsheet, some of them of trail signage issues. Some of them have coordinates, which is super easy, makes it super easy on Howard's group. And also in the future, hopefully, like I could just pull that up right now and show you, oh, remember that sign on Herb Dangler? This is where it is. Okay, don't you guys think we should fix it? But we don't have that quite yet. But anyway, that's what the little Google spreadsheet is. And what this committee needs to decide is, okay, what's going to be our approach to signage issues like this? So again, they're damaged, they're wrong, or we need one, or there's a suggestion that there be one.
So how would you like us? Would you like us to put this in the capital improvements? Is this a separate work stream that we should create? And I think there's two things here. There's the fix them either because they're damaged or I would put in a separate group new signs because I think that's a whole
Because
set of work.
the fix it can go to PV Connect, right?
Yes.
Replace it. Go to PV Connect.
Oh,
Yes. So how would I approach them is it would help if it's if you want to do a separate committee, but on regular maintenance issues, on established signs that are missing signs or broken posts, please put those on PV Connect because that goes directly right to the crew. It's the most efficient. Now, if we want to add change signs or add signs, that should be a separate spreadsheet. And I go back to on signs. You know, I'm really careful on signs. When we need signs for enforcement, you know, I'm in favor of temporary signs and then taking them down. It just wanted to get it goes back to the rural character of the town. And there was a sign configuration. I remember Dick Anderson put together a booklet of how things should, you know, the whole entire system of signs. And that was thoroughly looked over. And if we want to add signs to that, then we should make a separate list and we can analyze it. But just once again, when it comes to signs, if we, you know, just a good thought process of are they necessary? I know times have changed, but are they 100% necessary? And what do they mean for the trail users? In respect to, you know, just once again, in respecting the rural character of the towns, because sometimes what I've learned on this committee is sometimes less is more when it comes to signs.
One thing from our discussion, I remember just by physically using the trail, there's a sign sometimes, but we could relocate it. It's not adding a sign, it's just saying no one ever, if you turn left, you miss the sign because that's to the right. And they just need to rearrange for usability purpose rather. So that was on.
Exactly. And I would encourage stuff like, you know, like in bigger cities, they have a sign every 100 feet, the trail's here, the trail's here. Yeah. Our system wasn't developed like that. So just keep that in mind. I know there are probably signage, you know, X number of decades past, and there's probably some benefit to looking at some of these and some improvement that we can do, but just keep that in the background. That's all. But an Expel list.
I think we all have that in mind. What about, we all agreed last year that we were going to improve the dog part of the sign, because right now it looks like dogs are allowed versus dogs on leash. But I noticed the new signs didn't have that change, like the ones at Cherokee.
Drawing the dog with a leash attached to it as opposed to just drawing the dog.
We can look into that improvement. If you can email me.
Okay,
I know
we agreed to it last year, and I think you were going to create something for us to approve and not approve in terms of the look of it. And I can go through the minutes and try to pull that out, but I don't think that ever happened.
Are you saying the ones in Cherokee don't show a dog on leash?
I'm saying that I'm
sign?
using the new ones on Cherokee as an example of a new sign that was approved and put in and didn't have our new icon for dogs on leash on it because we don't have one yet.
So on the metal signs, I think we made ones with dogs on leash. It's the plexiglass signs that we're replacing. Those came out of a template on the plexiglass signs. They want, because the metal signs we can make as custom, but the plexiglass ones were kind of template ones that we had.
Yeah, and I remember you saying that like they would have to be updated, and it's like $150 or something. I can't remember. They show just a dog.
They show a dog, and I believe in our county, if you have a dog out in public,
100%.
It's just confusing for the person. It looks like, oh, great, I can do a dog here.
Yeah.
And as someone who's intermittently afraid of dogs, it would be nice if it showed you have to have it on a leash.
Yeah.
So we can look into that. But once again, I think Fred mentioned that he's correct that dogs are supposed to be on leash, but we will look into it.
Yeah. So in terms of the follow-up on this item, Liz, can you email the spreadsheet? And I guess maybe we as a map subcommittee, we could take a pass through the spreadsheet to identify which ones are fixes and which ones are new changes. take that on as a map subcommittee. Relatively easy to do. Fixes, relocations, and substantive new changes, and break that up and send it to Howard, and then you can follow up directly with you, Howard, on that.
Thank you.
Okay, Gary, did you get a chance to discuss land use statement with Lucy?
Yes, I've had some back and forth with Lucy. I think they haven't had a meeting yet since the last meeting where they've had, and with the benefit of all the comments that we provided during our meeting. So I expect they're going to digest that at their next meeting. They are committed to taking comment and to discussing the appropriateness of those comments. And I don't know that that will result in a change to the land use statement, land acknowledgement statement. I got to get that right. No one knows what I'm talking about. So it's in process. I know we still have probably the council will revisit this at some point. I don't have an update on that. But I offered Lucy the benefit of all of our feedback that when she wanted to come here and talk to us or have us present at their meeting. And she was really receptive to that. So it's a work in progress. Okay. And they're taking input and
so she didn't answer your question, which was, were any indigenous people involved in the formation of this?
They were, yes. So actually, she has been in touch with indigenous tribe members. I don't know to the extent they've been involved with these details, but they have been.
Yeah. I had one idea on that after listening to last month's meeting, the part that I couldn't be at. And for Ellie and Joe, Fred had mentioned that reading of the land acknowledgement stuff that I think you were erased or something.
Yeah, that
was really meaningful. Yeah. Is there any opportunity to have something like that at the first? Read it out.
A better.
We don't want it.
A better location would, a better time would actually be the community. I think there are opportunities to do things like that, and I discussed that with Lucy. From my perspective, I think there's just two issues here. Whether it's appropriate to include these kind of statements on agendas, which is a governance issue, which is largely out of our hands now, unless individuals have comments on that, and how to, in a tangible way, work this into what we do. We touched on that, I think, the last meeting. I thought there were some good ideas there. So I think those opportunities will come along. However, I think we need the Race and Equity Committee to catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I look forward to, talking about those ideas. And I think there's lots of things.
Yeah. So it sounds like good engagement with them.
Yeah.
Okay. Howard, you back there. You're the next follow-up, next two follow-up, the next three follow-ups. So. So we had a discussion last time about ensuring that when new projects, mostly new building permits are issued, that there's a staging plan that includes how they're going to avoid parking on trails effectively. So I wanted to see if you had an update on that.
Yes, I do. So I actually did talk to Laura Russell, the building and planning director. So I just wanted to go through the process that we have. We do take the trail seriously because over the years we get comments about it. So let me go with on the staging plan. When we do the plans, we do note concerning trails. I know that the planning department does note and stress no parking on trails. So on the staging plan. So that's kind of like the first part. And so when they do start construction, we do remind them of the trails. Again, also, we have pre-construction meetings with them that they sign a document actually that says, that we know as part of the pre-construction, they sign it, there's no parking on trails. And on top of that, the public works, I used to do them too, the pre-construction meetings with these developers too. And I specifically locate the trail right next to them and say, you can't park on it either. So, after saying that, the planning department says we could probably do a refresher for everyone on staff. Hey, stress this also. Now, when reports come in, we can either do PV Connect or the building department. If you can't reach me, and if it's really bothering users, I'd call the building department and at the 851-1700 extension 216, and then and report it. So typically, what happens is that then someone in the building department will call the project manager or the contractor listed concerning those cars and their subs. And of course, we get all kinds of excuses. And then after that, we go, oh, should we call the homeowner or not? So, and then the sheriff. So, and then we have shut down jobs before. We've given people chances, 1, 2, 3 chances. One of the ideas that me and Laura talked about was, basically for problematic place sites, how about we get the Trails Committee involved and assign a person on the Trails Committee and have a little note that we pass out or send out, or have the Trails Committee member call. We provide the information, and I have to double check this with Cara, of the homeowner and the contractor. And if someone's willing to do that on the Trails Committee, to be the contact for that. Because sometimes, we doing business, we can enforce it, but sometimes pressure from, well, that's eventually they're going to be part of the community. And if they want to get along with the Trails Committee, and if they get a note from, some nice note, I don't know, Ellie used to have a nice note too for if something did something right in the Trails Committee, there was a note. Maybe we could refresh that note to saying, we'd appreciate if you can help control your contractors and your subcontractors, because we tried these routes already and it keeps repeatedly happening. So that's one idea.
Yeah,
so,
I would certainly be open to.
Well, Howard, do you remember when members of the committee used to go out and tell people if they were doing work in their driveways there? And sometimes we got rather nasty pushback because we're only a voluntary organization. We're not an official. We just serve in this capacity. And so it didn't work that well at all. May I ask a question? Do we have a building inspector? Or is it farmed out?
It is.
We don't have a permanent building inspector, right?
No, it is farmed out, and I have broached that subject before because I know it was brought up before that when we had a permanent one.
Be the one, right?
They used to, and we do let the building inspector know to check on trails too. The comment prior concerning, we don't want to put anyone in the Trails Committee in harm's way when approaching a contractor. That's not what I meant. What I meant was basically a phone call. We would provide the contact information to the general contractor and the homeowner, and then if you could help us.
So just a phone call, not putting a notice or delivering a notice, just a phone call then?
Phone call or email.
What I heard from Howard is more, so the town is sort of more of the enforcement mechanism. It's not asking the Trails Committee to enforce. It's more having the Trails Committee be a conduit to connect with the homeowner, help them understand, our perspective on what this does and the damage that it causes in more of a community outreach. And it's not coming from someone who's on staff at the town, because I think that, for better or worse, they're perceived differently than all of us who live in the community and volunteers and, care about this. I think it's an extra avenue that we have to try to engage people.
I think it's a great idea, but it's just that we have done this in the past. And Joe?
Well, let me chime in because
I'm happy.
I think the best time, I don't disagree with that at all. I think the best time to do that, however, is at the beginning of the process. And so let me share with you what we used to do. When I first joined the Trails Committee, I started working on reviewing plans. That was kind of my task the first year. And I would go to the ASCC meeting for each one of these. Well, let me back up. First of all, we would see every set of plans, whether there was a trail on it or not, which I'm going to get to in a second why I think that's important. we used to go to ASCC meeting where the homeowners were present and the homeowners representatives were present, the builders, so on and so forth. And we would, make comments directly to ASCC that, hey, these are the issues we see with the trails. And the ASCC would then make it a condition upon their approval that no parking was done on the trails. So we had a little more teeth right there, right? Just at the very beginning. Plus we had a chance to talk with the homeowners and talk with the representatives then. And then it would go to us for review once the plans, in fact, I'll take that back. They came to us before we went to ASCC. We saw the plans.
Put them in our box.
We put them in our box. And then we'd go to ASCC, we'd make our comments there. ASCC would make them a condition of their approval, and then they would get put on the plans. So that's not happening anymore. And I've been beating myself up trying to think, why has this problem gotten so bad? What never used to be that bad. Even if there wasn't a trail on the property, like some of the problem sites we have now, there's a trail right across the street. We would catch that because we would see the plans. Some of these projects went by, we didn't even know they were going on, like the one on Shawnee Pass there. We didn't even know they were going on. Well, they have a trail right across the street and it's heavily impacted by construction. So we need to ask building and planning to run every set of plans by us again. I'm willing to look at every set if that's what it takes, or if somebody else wants to help. And then I think we need to start going to ASCC and take this stuff into ASCC and get them to make it a condition of their approval. And then you have it in writing. It's the homeowners notified way in advance. In the times when I went to contact homeowners, usually you can't find them. Maybe we can try calling them. So you end up talking with contractors. Contractors don't care. They just flat don't care. And you're already at a point now where this means time and money to them. Hey, we're in the middle of something. We don't really have time to deal with this. We got to get this done today so the next subcontractor can come in. They're not even going to talk to us. So to Ellie's point, I don't know how successful it will be to get in there after the fact and try to change things, especially when you already have 20 cars out there for a reason. They're working, right? But if we can get in there earlier in the process again, I think that might make a bigger difference. Those are just my thoughts.
So I guess as a follow-up, do you want to follow up the building department? Can we nominate you to follow up with the building department? Yeah,
I'll follow up with the building department, and then I will volunteer to go to ASCC on projects that need it. I don't know that we need to go for every one. Unless somebody else wants to partner with me on that too. That's okay.
I'll partner with you.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, only a couple more. Howard agreed to share information on prescriptive easements from the town attorney with the committee. Howard will email the agreed upon plans for 210 Cervantes. Do you have those? Can you email those out to the attorney?
So I emailed those out shortly after the last meeting to,
This is 210 Cervantes. Remember we discussed the Cervantes and
we sent the plans out and I replied back. I think I copied you that I looked at the plans were sufficient. I didn't see any problem with them. It doesn't restore it to the way it used to be, but it restores it to a way that's agreed upon by both the town and the homeowner, and it will be usable. So I don't have any more comments to make on that. I'm just waiting for the construction.
Is this the one where they moved the trails?
Yeah.
I thought I read that the homeowner had come and attended the meeting or something.
Was on Zoom, yeah.
They would agree, and then we haven't heard anything else.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, we have that. Gary's just saying that we got the plans.
Howard sent the plans up. Plans look good.
And the permit's been issued.
Today was going to be when are they going to cut the Saddlebrook? Let's do it.
so
I have a chainsaw.
Yeah.
So the town, we issued the permit.
Okay.
So we haven't heard from them after we've issued the permit, but I'm assuming it's through the wet weather. It's pretty muddy, but we did make sure the alignment. Part of the permit conditions is that they stake the alignment and we check the alignment first before they put it.
Okay. Why don't we just have this as a evergreen follow-up until that bottle rust comes in?
I did notice yesterday that a bunch of it's fallen down. Either someone's pushed it down or the weather's caused it to fall. I I don't know if they were temporarily checking out to see how easy it would be to take it out. Do you know, Howard? With that smile?
No, they're gonna have to, to take it out, you're gonna have to remove the roots too. That's what we expect. Yeah, it's regrading, removing the plants. Some of the conditions are you can put a plant at mature growth, you don't go into the trail too. And they originally had the trail coming back in further down, and we I think I talked to Gary, we want the trail to cut back in where it traditionally had.
Okay, last follow-up was the working session with the Safer School Committee on getting.
Yes, so I'm still working on that. I mean, based on I still have to work on this. Just based on the very initial opinion from the town attorney's initial email, was that she doesn't have an opinion on whether someone could legally justify these. But once again, take that with a grain of salt. That was the initial reaction. I have to do a little more deep dive into descriptive easement.
Are you suggesting we would try to apply it to Cervantes and Costa Vista, or are we just doing this to know?
I think this is a separate issue from Costa Vista.
This is the last meeting you
Okay. No, last one is Safer School Subcommittee. Did y'all have a chance to meet with Howard to at least talk about a work back?
So, and Howard, you can then chime in. I mean, the only thing that I've done here is I just briefly joined the BPCS meeting only in the beginning portion of their last meeting for public comment, just to update them on the work we're doing with the map. And I just emphasize the importance of how we can tie into that project. And I was told that that was on their agenda later in the meeting that Howard and the group are going to be discussing next steps. And then I haven't seen the next steps. So maybe Howard, you could let us know just what came out of that.
I can't recall at the minute, but I think that nothing changed. Nothing changed. We're still targeting for completing design by June and doing something in the summer.
Okay, and I think the clarification that I was confused by was just that it seems that what is needed from the BPCS committee specifically? Like, how does that relationship work? Because when I've checked in with Ed, he's sort of like, yeah, I don't know, we have to check in with Howard, but then I've heard that there's things needed from them. So how does that collaboration work with the committee? Like, are there things you need from them, or how does that?
There's some minor aesthetic things I need from them potentially. We're doing the design, and we are coming at this moment coming up with how the poles. There's some aesthetics items that I have to run by Ed, and that's really just for good communications. But the point we're at is we have a traffic engineer looking at it. We have to move the crosswalks a little bit, 5 feet either way is what he suggested. There's some topography items that we have to figure out at the ends of each crosswalk when we move them. Do the grades match? So we're looking at that right now. And then we're looking at which system to pick right now. And the vendors are looking at some solar studies to see if you could go 100% solar or not, at one place or another. So I'm at the point where basically I'm picking out systems, and I'm trying to pick out the system that least invasive aesthetically, and those are the things I might run by Ed, and we haven't had. So that's where we are. But the thought process is still really to get design done by June, and then trying to get prices and contractors right after.
And also note, we'll have a sign off on that design too, because we have to look at the sign placement and other items, batteries, solar panels, whatever is going to go up in the area to make sure they don't impede the trail or cause safety issues on trail. So that will come to us for review, Howard, for that. I know we did an initial review. Remember, you and I, back when you had the consultant, you had the different, we looked at it. But
I was not planning on coming back to the Trails Committee on that one. It's in the right of way. I can.
Well, only if you have concerns. You had concerns at the time.
Yeah, I think it was just consent. I was seeking consensus on how they'll look. But I think we went to the ASCC. So the outreach we've done so far is that we went to the ASCC. I sent notices out concerning the ASCC meeting, potentially on how these rapid flashing beacons would look like at the crosswalks. We didn't receive any comments, but you don't really receive any comments until you're ready to install and
So people can see it.
and they'll be very similar
Right
to
in the middle
those
of the
in,
trail.
Okay, so are we then, is there not going to be a work back?
So given what I heard, I would be supportive of Howard making that decision at the time. If Howard, once he has the design in his lap, is concerned there might be signage issues that we would want to look at, but then he would make the decision to bring it to the committee.
Yeah, I think that's good too. What I was asking is there going to be a meeting between smaller groups to work back from the day of school opening to when these, is this beacon, are these going to get in there? What do we have to do? I like the way you phrased it with the last meeting, Fred. What has to happen, or what do we have to provide? Do you have any help? What has to happen for the beacons to be in by the day school opens?
school opens August 15th or
This year it's more, it's like August 28th roughly.
More normal
And
this year.
so I know that we want a definite answer, and I'm hesitant to providing a definite answer when the design's not done yet.
But can we put a date for the design to be done? It seems like that's the next step. So is it like it will be done? I mean, obviously this is how it works, right? You always set a date that sometimes it gets missed, but the goal is, so what's the goal date? It would be of June 1st. And then it's working back, I guess, to Liz's point of if does that then give enough time to get prices, get contracts, and get the work done.
So it sounds like we haven't had the work back meeting. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
Outside of Newbury.
Okay. So I think what we need to do is have a meeting between now and our next meeting to what you just said. So school starts on August 29th for students. Working back from that date, how long do we think install happens? What's the condition for when install happens? It's securing contractor. You can't secure contractor until you have design done, right? You can't finalize design until you have comments from us. And I guess it's when is that hard date on when design is going to get done? Is there anything that getting that on the calendar so we can have an understanding of whether or not we're going to get finished by the 29th of August, and if not, then by when. So we can have expectations for our Safe Routes to School map when we're going to publish it.
Yeah.
So can we commit to having that meeting to establish that work back plan?
Yeah, we can have the meeting. Yes, we can have the meeting.
And I think we're not trying to say like we're acknowledging that it's not entirely in your control at that date. We want to have an understanding of what are the variables at play that contribute to whether or not we can meet that date.
It's just, and I'll be upfront. The issue is basically committing to a date that we haven't had previously, and we are trying amongst a lot of the other things that we're doing in town, and it's just how it is in public works is once you commit to a date, you're locked into it, and so I understand, and we are trying. Anyway.
Well, the other thing I'd say though, I think we had a misunderstanding on the committee when we talked about June 2023, that was when the beacons were going in. And then we find out last meeting, no, that's when the design will be done. And so to Fred's point, it would be really illustrative, really, for the committee to understand the variables, all the factors, everything that has to happen before those beacons are there, so that we can help educate our friends and parents and people who are complaining, so we can we feel like now, I feel at least a little bit of a black hole. Like I get it. I don't know why they're not in. You know, whereas if we were educated and had a little bit more like, well, you got to get the design done, and then that's got to get approved, and we're working on it, and then we've got to get contractors and the bidding, and the whole thing's going to take between 2 months to 3 months. You know, we just need the education more.
And then we can track progress.
We're not trying to
help.
Yeah, but, it's solely just that I think, you know, all of that, and this is with communication of not knowing, like, just the word of we're in design. I think some of us are like, why doesn't that take 2 weeks? You know, like, so it's just like elaborating. And even just today, you listing out some of those.
You know, I think we should set our expectations such that we're not going to see every detail of a project like this, right? There are infinite number of details when you get into construction. And maybe looking at the milestones, right, would be a way to do it. And because we don't really want to have Howard do all this extra work of opening up that schedule to us and all these details and a lot of work. But milestones, I think, would be pretty easy, right? So design done, contractor selected, or bidding for out the bid, contractor selected, contractor starts work, contractor's miles, that kind of stuff. If that's okay, Howard, I mean, maybe we'll do it.
Yeah, we'll have a quick talk. I mean,
okay.
you know, obviously there are some plans, but it's just hesitant to release some dates in public without talking them through. There are plans. And then I just wanted to add one thing. I don't believe the safe, it's required for the Safe Routes to School map to go out. These rapid flashing beacons are not required.
I think what we have discussed before is more just the communication to, you know, when the map is communicated out, we want to communicate out to the parents about the plans for the beacon. Because there are a lot of parents who are concerned with that crosswalk as a safe route, I guess, from school.
Yeah, I think the reality is safe routes to school doesn't really work very well without those crosswalks coming in. And we'd be hesitant to really push it, you know, because we'd love to see a big program around getting more kids to ride their bikes to school, right? But a little hesitant to do that without these crosswalks and the kids walking home by themselves. A little hesitant to do that without, you know, the crosswalks. So we could release it at any time, but the effectiveness of it would be hindered if we didn't have those crosswalks. So that I think that's what we hear from parents at the district.
And I hear that. And once again, I just want to state that the rapid flashing beacons are an enhancement to the crosswalk. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We are through old business. On to new business. Fortunately, I think we only have one item, and we actually maybe can nest it within the previous discussion on signage. There was a discussion on the new sign on Cherokee Path is not actually indicative of what the easement is. Is that right? It restricts bikes and it shouldn't restrict bikes. Is that correct?
Right. So, and Howard, jump in anytime here. I don't want to get this wrong. At the time that we made that decision, the current state of Cherokee Trail was that bikes were not permitted anywhere on it. And without us changing that resolution, it kind of tied Howard's hands that he had to create the new signs showing the current designation. Once we do change the designation, once we do have our new resolution and we have our new maps that are based on that resolution, then that gives Howard the green light to change the signs to allow bikes. So this is just a chicken and egg kind of thing. I don't recall having that conversation, but I do recall in my own mind thinking that it's going to take at least 6 months to get these signs done. We'll have our resolution well before then, and that didn't happen. So correct me if I'm wrong. Once we have a resolution, then we change the signs and we're good to go. Is that the plan?
Yes, in a nutshell, correct. I mean, we placed the sign, at the time, Michael Nichols was on the committee, and he wanted the uses separated through his property, whereas only the equestrians were closest to his property and all the rest was further from his property. So we walked with Gary and we placed a number of new signs to indicate that. At that time, I thought it was just to separate the equestrian and the rest of the trails. To add the bike ones, Gary is correct on the council adopted resolution that does not say bikes. In addition, all the connecting trails to it are no bikes also. So it's just once we get that resolution changed, then we can just go ahead and just change this.
Yeah, I think the problem was that the minutes from all these meetings all said multi-use versus equestrian. And we all approved them. We all approved the minutes. So this is an example of where a trail archive would be helpful. So we have to go through all this again. Yay, trail archive. But that's great. I think, we'll get the right thing in the minutes now and do this. It's fine.
And I know that there are folks maybe who are going to work after this on the resolution. So with that, we are through new business. Any other business?
Yes, can I ask that maybe we bring up the horse fair on the next agenda just to give you a little bit of it?
Yeah, I'm adding the horse fair to next agenda, and I know that there's a request to increase the budget, and I just got an email about the budget to understand if that's possible. Follow up on that. We'll have it on the. I mean, I think it's just basically costs have increased since the last time we did it.
Had it for 4 years.
Right. So it seems pretty reasonable.
Let's make sure Julius is aware that we're going to ask to increase our already approved budget for this year.
I think it's in the realm of about $2,000. Is that right?
Do I hear 4? It's just, I don't know. Barb said things have gotten on it. So, yeah.
Barb would be
all right.
4, and then it was increased to 5, and then we never had the whole fair 4 years ago.
Right.
And
So,
now,
you're saying the total cost, increasing up to 7. Yeah, I was talking about the difference. The difference is 2,000 is what Barb had liked.
We have a code enforcer. And
yeah.
okay. Yeah, I just want to talk here about, we have a code enforcer in town. He just works for the town when they need him, I guess. And he has been very good at getting issues resolved without me having to go knocking on doors of homeowners who don't like that. It's much better if somebody who has a representation goes. They seem to listen. I don't know what it is, but anyway, there was something on the minutes passed about some properties here, and he got 145 Grove and 418 Patola Road. He got them to score their driveways. They were very slippery. They'd slurry sealed them. And in the old days, we used to send thank you cards from our committee, which I did. I don't know if you still want to do that. Saying thank you so much for doing it.
Yeah.
We also will do it for people that put landscaping on the trail and then they remove it. Yeah, so thank you. But he's working on 2 more driveways now. One is at 34 Grove and 220 Shawnee. I'd like to mention something else. Howard mentioned about the building inspector saying, supposed to park on trails. Well, on Willowbrook, there is a problem with 180 Willowbrook. They're building a house or they've redone a house and they ripped up the fence and they put their tractors going across the trail. Now, I know it's only on Willowbrook, so it's not a terribly highly used trail, but they've totally decimated the trail. So I just wonder what's the procedure before they get their final that they have to restore the trail. I mean, I'm not saying they need to do it now because you can't, there's a section of it, about 20 feet in front of you where they've got to go on the road and it's right where that, the trees and that roundabout are in the middle of it. So what is the procedure? If you have no building inspector, who do you're saying call the building department, which is to report it and have, before they get their final, they need to restore that trail. Because it's pretty bad, it's awful. And they're running also, they've got some water issues, so they've run the pipe, the hose right on. So right now it's kind of a wash. So how do we check that that's recorded?
Well, multiple things can happen. But the first thing is to put it in PV Connect and follow it with the building department. And what happens is something is written and placed in their parcel. Well, a couple of things happen. Whether if it immediately needs to be fixed, we'll require them to immediately fix it if it's affecting use, safe use. If it's minor, like the ones we had on Fawn, basically we report it in their parcel file so that when we do the final process is all the departments look in the parcel file and see what's outstanding. and then we would go out there, and before we sign off on the permit, they would have to fix the trail to trail standards. And that's something that I place in my pre-construction minutes on the public works engineering side, and that's something the building department also does. So it is looked at. It is looked at during a final. And if you're curious about it, please do submit a PV Connect so that it doesn't go away.
So do it through PV Connect.
Yeah, PV Connect, or you can even call the building department. It is looked at. I mean, At the end of the day, we don't want to spend public money on a private problem that was created. And I'll give an example on Fawn. I mean, they had to sell the house, and we had them place a bond to fix it. And we finally fixed it. So the answer is we do keep track of it. And during the final, they're not going to get a final until everything else in the right of way is fixed. So to ensure that, to make everyone feel good about it, the Trails Committee, please inform us. Because I'm not going to say we don't miss anything, but it's human. But if you inform us or put in PV Connect, it's documented in their parcel file.
Well, the fact that they were allowed to knock down the fence and basically use up that trail to move their tractor out when they could have gone through the driveway, it was just, I guess, easier for them to do that. It's a neighbor. I'm not going to make it. But I'm just saying that nobody said anything. And they've had this ongoing construction for over a year. So Portola Valley, the building inspector or whoever, never said anything. And they must be coming out all the time to check on, write off various sections. Anyway, I'm just saying that.
So I will double check
it
that.
It behooves us all to be observant. If you see people doing unwarranted construction in the trail, please make a note and just check with the town. Right. Ellie, what is the name of this code enforcement? Saying there's a different person than the Well, I don't know if, I contacted him directly because I found out, I think Howard told me, we've got a code enforcer who works part-time for the town. He's very good. And so I call him direct, but are you saying that in future things like this should go to PV Connect and then they ask you and you say, oh, call Gary, the code enforcer? I mean, you don't want people calling him direct to you.
So what happens on PV Connect is if you input it, the staff will get it and assign it to code enforcement. And basically he will get the email.
And then how will I find out when I need to write a homeowner card? Confused. I have the cards.
Yeah.
Okay, but how,
let's agendize that for next time. And I think maybe cards, but also maybe we could, put a thank you in the town email that now goes out would be nice for the public function. Maybe useful.
Quick question for Howard. Does this site have a encroachment permit pulled?
130 Willowbrook. I have to take a look. I'm going to look right after.
180.
Because I don't recall looking at that project. It has a trail on the land, so we should have looked at it. This may have.
You mean that would trigger the building department?
Right. Well, yeah, and it would also have notified the homeowner and the contractor to be more careful before they started their project, which sounds like they weren't.
And I feel like this may be more than a year old.
Okay. They were hoping to move in by, it must be, by I think Halloween and then Thanksgiving and just one of the quick things on Naples. I got a notice from somebody saying, they're putting all kinds of stuff on the trail. A homeowner there had covered the trail, and it was quite a long trail, town trail, with cardboard. And they had people there loading stuff onto it. I had no idea what they were doing. I think they were preparing to plant on it. So I turned it in to Howard, PV Connect, and they had the guys go out, I guess, and stop them. So that's another thing. If you see stuff going on in town trails, maybe just turn it into PV Connect and they can check, oh, it's okay, or oh, it's not. Where's that?
Okay. Anything else?
I have some other business.
Okay.
So last night I attended a committee of committees meeting regarding committee governance structure and ultimately a rewrite of the committee handbook. So this is at the very beginning of this process, this first meeting. The minutes, I think, will be produced by Patty Dews, if I pronounce that correctly, so people can look at that. What they're asking committees to do is to consider whether we really need to be Brown Act compliant committees or not. And I'll make this very brief. The pros to that would mean we would all the noticing, and we could participate on Zoom. In fact, the whole meeting could be done on Zoom, right? We could make our own rules essentially about stuff like that. The downside is that we would have to give up any codified responsibilities of the Trails and Paths Committee, which I found out last night, we do have some power in this town that I never knew about. Judith, maybe you can help us find this. Somebody needs to help us find this, but somewhere in the municipal code, the chair of the Trails and Paths Committee can override the town council when it comes to placement of structures next to trails or something like that, because no one actually had the ordinance. We would have to give up stuff like that. It's not clear whether we would be able to discuss public documents like EIRs and so on. So what they're asking us to do is to agendize this topic at an upcoming meeting. At that meeting, we could have either Sarah or the other person, Craig Taylor, I'm sorry. Yeah, either Craig or Sarah come give us a presentation, because I know this is all new to everyone. And then ultimately we would give them a response whether we thought we would want to go the non-Brown Act route or stay Brown Act.
Do all committees have to do it?
Each committee decides on their own. We are not forced by the town to take one path or the other. Each committee has that option, and with some committees it made very clear sense that they shouldn't be Brown Act committees, and other ones it made very clear sense that they should be. In addition to that, they would like us to schedule a presentation from a council member on the town council priorities. So this is kind of new. Last year, and the way it's been done since I was chair, we would present our priorities to the town council, and they would work them into their budget, and all that would get resolved in June. They want to kind of turn it around a little bit and give us a presentation on what their priorities are, to make sure that our priorities align with their priorities. And I think it's not as rigid as maybe that. It's maybe there's going to be some back and forth about what those priorities are going to be, what our priorities are going to be. So something that they've asked us to agendize at some point, Fred. And Sarah or Craig would probably be the right contacts to figure out how to do that.
You just have something.
No. So last year it was so the intent thing was I have an opportunity not to what or to so we're working at the process, not that it's but to help that's really not really but you'll find in the last the result of that was and he looked at it I would at the agenda. This is brand new, really getting into the details of
It sounds like you could be on the agenda to just do that. It doesn't sound like we have to have Craig Taylor, if you're our liaison.
Yeah, let me be clear. There were two issues
Yep.
there. One the Brown Act format, and the other one the town priorities.
We'll get those on.
Great. And then I had one more. I guess it's a follow up with Howard. The handwritten maps that we got from Tom Blasek and George Mader, have those been copied yet? I would really like to get those back.
Not yet.
Okay.
So I can make a copy.
I think I might have copies. Remember those days when people wrote them out by hand?
Yeah. Well, we found
Needs to be in the town, a Trails Archive.
yeah, absolutely it does. We found a whole set of every parcel in town that George Mader and Tom marked up every easement.
They were very thorough.
Yeah, very thorough. And so it's gold. We really need that back. I so want to keep going over that. So more for me, I guess. Than
Yeah, I found those in our drawing box archive. I saw it before, but then I go, oh, this must be valuable.
Sounds good. We'll have a follow up on that next meeting to make sure they get copies.
and that's all the new business I have.
Okay. Any
Other business?
Copied, are you saying copy, or are you talking digitized? Copy?
Yeah, I'm going to send them out for digitization.
Okay. Any other business? Okay. Item 7 is meeting adjournment. Can I get a motion?
I second.
Alex.
Wait, who
Alex,
motioned it? Who
Alex.
motioned it?
Alex motion. Ellie seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hold on, Fred. That's the first one in the books.
I mean, timing though.